Welcome, eCom Logistics Nation. Thank you for joining today's episode. We're on a mission to share e-commerce logistics insights, trends, successes, and challenges from the leaders and innovators in our space.
I think what TikTok needs to do is, again, change how commerce is done on the platform. So I think would be very interesting is if TikTok acquires Shopify. So where now I have Shopify, I have the Shopify storefront on TikTok. And so then what happens is I immediately see a video come across, but it's a video from a storefront. And without having to go to a website, I see it, I buy it. And that's how I refer to what I think is the next big thing in commerce. I say, see, buy. I see it, I buy it.
Welcome, eCom Logistics Podcast Nation. Nanad and I are excited to welcome global supply chain consultant Brittain Ladd. Brittain's career started back when he joined and served in the Marine Corps for 6 years. Thank you for your service, Brittain. His experience includes supply chain strategy and advisory roles with the like of Dell, Capgemini, Deloitte, Amazon, Instacart, and Mucho, just to name a few. On LinkedIn, he's famously known for his thought leadership and extremely deep and insightful posts and exchanges. Highly recommend following Brittain on LinkedIn if you're not already part of his community, which at my last count is over 25,000 followers. So quite the community that you have, Brittain. Along the way, he's earned three master's degrees, including one in supply chain management. We are excited for this time with you, Brittain. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I'm super glad to be here, everybody.
Thank you. I just have to add, on LinkedIn, I wait for the posts that come from Brittain. I know it's going to be punchy. It's going to be to the point, some thorough analysis, and it's going to be no filters, right? And I actually look forward to the post that you do and the amount of thoughts you put into your post as well. So I would rank you in the top 3 LinkedIn supply chain influencers for me without a question.
Well, thank you. You know, it's interesting. I get a lot of people who reach out to me because of my post. And the thing that they tell me is the reason why they like to read what I write is they know I'm going to tell it like it is. I don't play favorites. But I also don't criticize. I don't belittle. But I think the thing that people love the most about what I do is I may say to a company like Peloton, which I did. I wrote a post about Peloton where I said, you need a new CEO. You just do. But even after I wrote that, I said, these are the things you should be doing. I wrote a post this morning about Walt Disney. You know, Bob Iger came back. And I said, this is why he had to come back. And these are things that Disney really needs to do. It's been 2 years since Bob Iger's been there. Frankly, everything he wanted to do now is irrelevant. He has to come up with a new strategy. Everything is different. So I said, this is why they had to bring back Bob. Frankly, it's a mistake on the part of Disney. They didn't do a good job of finding someone to replace Bob. And I also pointed out that Walmart and Microsoft and General Motors and other companies who have CEOs who have been in the role for 9 or 10 or 11 years, when are they going to replace those CEOs? It's a very dangerous thing to do. So I may say something or write something that may appear to be a criticism, but I also always say these are things you can also do. And that's why I think my posts are so popular.
Absolutely. And also a little provocative, right? Because I like to think like I know this space a little bit, right? But I don't think I have enough confidence to go out and post something like GoPuff should acquire Ohi, right? Like that's a recent post that she just like your ability to say that with confidence and the ability to kind of portray that message. And here is why I think that should happen, right? Like, and that takes a really deep understanding and definitely a confidence in yourself and a type of character to be able to pull that off. I just got to say, like, I would struggle with writing something of that nature because I know that's something, and pardon my French, could start a shitstorm, right? Like, and you aren't afraid of that.
Well, the reason why I'm not afraid, though, since you brought it up, let me just cover that for a few minutes. So 2013, I wrote a research report where I applied game theory to the global grocery industry. And in that 2013 research report, I said Amazon should acquire Whole Foods. Everyone laughed. Everyone said I was an idiot. I sent copies to people at Amazon. They laughed. They thought I was an idiot. 2017, June 16th, Amazon acquires Whole Foods. In 2019, I wrote a post that Walmart and Microsoft should partner and acquire TikTok. A year later, Walmart and Microsoft partner and attempt to acquire TikTok. But I can assure you for that 1 year period, that post had so many negative comments on it. And I had so many people reaching out to me saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You're an idiot. How could you even think about saying something like that publicly? And I said, let's wait and see what happens. Peloton saying they needed a new CEO. The day I wrote that post, Peloton was valued at $60 billion. And I said, within 1 year, Peloton will be worth between 3 to 5 billion. Less than a year later, I was right. They were only worth around 4 billion, I think. So I put an awful lot of time and effort into my research. But here's the thing. If all I did was say, I think this could happen, I think Peloton could really have a bad year. Would anyone care? I'd rather come out and say, this is what I think will happen. This is what a company should do. I've been very clear. I think that Walmart and the Home Depot should merge. I still believe that. There are many big ideas I've written about. The majority have become a reality. Some of them haven't. But I think people would rather I say, this is what's going to happen or this is what you should do versus, gosh, imagine if that happened. Who cares then? So that's why I say what I do. I'm very confident I'm going to be right. But if I'm wrong, so what? It was still a cool post to wrote. It generated a lot of ideas and discussions. And that's why I do it. I simply have no fear of CEOs. I don't have fear of legal departments. I don't have fear of people criticizing me. I'd much rather have a spine and the ability to say, I'm going to put my ideas out there and engage with people and encourage discussion versus playing it safe. I didn't join the Marines so I could take it easy. I really do believe that I think it's important to be willing to face, critics and be someone who can lead. That's just something I've always done.
Yeah, and it definitely shows. And I think it's the Marine side of it, right? Like that's the character building that I'm missing, I guess. So
How old are you? Maybe we could get you in.
It's not too late, man. Yeah. It's not
Never
too late.
Yeah. I thought about joining boot camps at one point just to get in shape, but yeah. That's probably as far as I'll go.
Well, maybe we could stick with your postings, Brittain, and talk about, obviously, Amazon's not the only company in its current situation, but they did announce the layoff of 10,000 employees, which is the largest in in Amazon's history. And you recently wrote a post where you were aligned with the need for Amazon to reduce headcount. But your thoughts are for a deeper reduction, getting Amazon to a global employee size of somewhere around 1.1, 1.25 million, which you call their optimal fighting weight, right? Which is, when you look at the math, it equates to a reduction of 150,000 to 400,000 employees compared to the 10,000 they announced. And I think as of this morning, Amazon was trading at about 91, which is down from a year-to-date high of around 172. So obviously a lot of impact on stock price. And I think one of the things I really appreciated about your writing here is, companies aren't going to get out of this current situation with just saying, I'm going to reduce headcount. It's just going to be a cost reduction exercise. And that's going to get me out of the place I'm at today. So would love to get your perspective on maybe how we got here, because we do know that, in the last couple of years, Amazon has also doubled its employee headcount, right? So, what type of change or focus do you think is needed for, maybe specifically Amazon to get to the other side of this?
Well, so let's talk about why it happened. And I'm not trying to sound too cruel here, but Google and Amazon and Meta and all these other companies, all these other tech companies that are laying off large numbers of associates, they all made a mistake. Those executives running those companies said, wow, during the pandemic, this is the new normal. And as they're going around saying, this is the new normal, I'm writing posts saying, this is absolute insanity. There's nothing normal about this at all. You have entire continents and countries and cities and states voluntarily shutting down their economy, something that had never happened before. So all of these things that had never occurred before were creating a situation in the economy that had never occurred before. So how these otherwise intelligent CEO could say to themselves, wow, this is the new normal. I'm Andy Jassy at Amazon, and we're really going to be in a period of growth probably for the next 10 years. Or I'm Mark Zuckerberg, and I look at the situation and say, oh my gosh, this is the perfect time for the metaverse. We're going to create something unlike the world has ever seen, and I need to hire thousands and thousands of more people to be involved because look at our growth we're experiencing right now. And I look at that and I say, that's what's wrong in many ways with the modern day C-level, to where you have executives who are treated with so much deference that there isn't someone like a Brittain Ladd saying, you can't be serious, Andy. You honestly think we need to hire more people? We need to build more warehouses because of what's taking place in the pandemic? Why don't we just go back a year and a half and compare where we were? And the thing that shocked me the most when I was doing my research before I wrote my post is I was looking at what was Amazon's employee level in 2019 and 2020. And then what happened in 2021? They had a 62% increase in 1 year during the pandemic, but that wasn't because of the increase in volume and actual work taking place during that period. That was in preparation of growth they believed they were going to experience. I saw the same thing at other tech companies. And so I wrote this post saying, look, if you made a mistake that the growth of the pandemic was not only going to remain, but increase. And because of that mistake you made, you hired an additional 400,000 people. Why then do you need 400,000 people today, 400,000 additional employees today, if the growth never materialized? So all I'm saying is I believe that Amazon is wrong. I think Amazon's doing everything they can to protect their reputation. I stated in my post, I think that the layoffs of 10,000 is just the beginning. And I think what you're going to see is that every 6 months over the next several years, you're going to see Amazon put out something, say, well, now we need to rebalance. We've been making great changes. We're so much more efficient. And I'm not criticizing Andy Jassy. I'm just simply saying I would have rather had Andy Jassy come out and, the executives at Google and Meta and everybody else say, not only did we really miss it badly, but we missed it incredibly badly. And so we are going to have to terminate between us maybe 4, 5, or 600,000 people, whatever it is. Get the truth out there now. I especially think that's important for Amazon. So do I think 10,000 people is enough at Amazon? No, not at all. I think closer to 100,000 to 150,000 makes the most sense. Again, the fighting weight. Boxing is my favorite sport. It's the sport I competed in. And my fighting weight, I knew exactly where I was most comfortable at. And I wasn't going to fight a heavyweight when I was most comfortable at 175 pounds. So Amazon's fighting weight, I think, probably is in that 800 to 1 million people globally. It certainly is at 1.2 or 1.5 million. I see no need for that at all. So I think Amazon's really in a bad situation, but when you're in a bad situation, you at least know you've got to do one thing, fix it. And that's what I want Andy to do. I want him to come out and say, we have a mess and we're going to fix it come hell or high water. That's what I think Andy has to do, and I'm waiting for it to happen.
I was just actually looking at the numbers that you speak of, right, on the pre-pandemic levels of employee base for Amazon. And they have this 10 to 15% employee growth rate going all the way up until 2019. And then you see from 2020, 2021 combined, they literally had 100%. Within 2 years, 100% employee base increase. So they go from 800,000 employees to 1.6 million employees, right? And again, asterisk includes full-time and part-time employees, excludes contractors and temporary personnel. That's kind of the number from where. So if you just go back and we go with that 20% increase, right? You would be sitting at exactly what you're saying about a 1.1, 1.2 million growth. Now, it's not as simple because Amazon's not just one thing. There is multitude of things that they do. But yeah, that you sound absolutely spot on. If you were to pull back to the or work with your pre-pandemic levels and just chart out as if pandemic didn't happen, then you should be at 1.1, 1.2 million as an example. And
correct.
We are probably going to see that.
They're probably, and again, the thing that I think Amazon and the other companies need to do is step back and say, wait a minute, how do we make sure we don't do this in the future? Mistakes happen, we know that. It's when you try and minimize a mistake instead of correcting a mistake. And that's what I'm concerned with. Is Amazon trying to minimize their mistake? Because if all they're saying is we just have to terminate 10,000 people and we're going to be fine. I'm not buying that. I have concerns about that. And I think we're going to see that this issue just isn't going to go away. This is going to be something that's going to take several years to work through. But as you just said, there's no way that 100% increase was justified during the pandemic. And it's certainly not justified keeping all those people around now, especially when Amazon is coming out saying we're shrinking. We're losing market share. We're losing the need for all of our logistics facilities and our logistics business. So why then do you need still so many people? Shrink down to the size you need to be. That's why you're the CEO, Andy.
I think, there's the other general social conscious kind of like perspective as well of how people react to it, right? Like, so we just discussed they hired 100% more employees. When they let 10,000 people go, it's like absolutely nothing compared to their workforce. But all people read about is that they let 10,000 people go. And the concern is the domino effect. And I think it is the right thing to do, but the messaging in the market needs to be corrected because I think people are thinking the world is burning out there, right? From an inflation standpoint, recession coming, all of that jazz. It's just, how does the media organization portray what is happening, right? Like they need to do this level of reporting to say, listen, they screwed up. We had 100% more employees, right? They are just pulling back 20%, right? Like it's not that big of a deal. Of course, it's bad for the people that let go, but the messaging needs to change because this is what's causing the domino effect in the market and making the inflation worse than or recession that's looming. It's going to be worse than it ought to be because of
I agree. But again, if I'm Andy Jassy, I'm reaching out to every media outlet, CNN and NBC and, ABC, Fox News. I'm reaching out to everybody. I'm going to give as many interviews as I can. I'm going to put out a very detailed press kit. But I'm also going to be putting out a very detailed explanation on my website, and I'm going to be putting out my own videos on LinkedIn. And I'm going to say, let me walk you through what happened. But Andy is actually protected because he can say, we encountered something that's never been encountered before in the world. We've never once had a situation where entire continents voluntarily shut down their economies. The Black Swan event was not COVID. The Black Swan event was countries and continents voluntarily shutting down their economies, and it greatly skewed what the demand was going to be, what growth was going to be. So I think Andy can come out and look right in the camera and say, this is what happened, this is what we have to do to fix it. And if we don't fix it, then look at what happens. It's actually even worse. So I agree with you, but I have confidence in these executives. I don't think these executives are bad individuals. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg, or Andy Jassy or the other executives out there, I don't think they're bad at what they do. They simply made a mistake. Now there's a way to fix it. And I think that absolutely has to be the message. Control the message, control the narrative, but still fix it. And let's talk about one other thing. So let's throw something out there. I've also been writing about Elon Musk, and I've been writing about Twitter. Now, I was one of the few people before Elon Musk bought Twitter, and I was making the argument that Twitter, they actually grew not because of the pandemic. They grew because Jack Dorsey absolutely thought there was going to be a need for growth. Parag Agrawal thought there was going to be a need for growth. But at the same time we're talking about growth, the total number of customers that are on Twitter was not increasing. And so the thing that I've been doing behind the scenes is I've been reaching out to executives and people who work at Twitter before Elon Musk acquired them. And I said, okay, off the record, I want you to tell me, if you were going to start Twitter, how many people would you really need? And I always heard the same figure, between 1,000 to 1,500 people. That's it. I reached out to executives at Meta, and I reached out to executives at Google, senior level executives. I said, if you were going to create Twitter today, how many people do you think you would need? The highest estimate was only 2,000. So I hope what happens is that when people see Elon Musk cutting all these people at Twitter, I hope they realize that's really an outlier. Twitter was just an incredibly inefficient company. Frankly, I don't think there was anyone ever in charge of the company based on all the things that people have been telling me about that place. I think it's going to be interesting to watch what Elon Musk is doing. But I think Twitter's one of those companies that's absolutely going to be able to do just fine with very low numbers of people, just as I think eventually Google and Amazon and these other companies slowly but surely can reduce the number of headcount they have, and they're still going to do just fine. Elon Musk would rather just simply cut it right now, whereas I think the other executives are going to say, let's go a little slower. But at the end of the day, it still is the same thing. You have to make these companies more efficient. And unfortunately, one of the only ways to do that, or one of the best ways, is simply trim your headcount.
Makes sense.
I believe the way that Elon Musk saves Twitter and makes Twitter completely different is through shoppable videos. And I think absolutely that what Elon Musk should be doing is we need short form videos, shoppable videos. And for every shoppable video we put on Twitter, we take 12% of all sales. And I think the goal should be for every shoppable video that Elon Musk puts on Twitter, that it generates 100 to 250 million in sales. So if Elon Musk does that, that's something that's never been done on any platform before. And it's something that I really love to see Elon be able to do, because I think it's what is going to generate a tremendous amount of revenue for Twitter. But I think it's actually going to be something that helps take Twitter into the top 5 of those platforms versus where it is today.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to be watching from the sidelines as far as Twitter is concerned. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe staying on that recommendation, Brittain, look at that wouldn't be the first attempt of a platform entering into what's now being called social commerce, right? And we have TikTok announcing, and actually even before they were announcing, people started seeing a lot of job postings for supply chain, logistics, fulfillment roles, leadership roles. So we see them starting to kind of take this the same type of step into social commerce, selling product on TikTok. And it looks like they might be starting with a international e-commerce fulfillment system and then bringing that here into North America. So would love anything you've heard on that front, any thoughts? And again, it might be a playbook for Twitter to follow in the coming months too.
Well, it's interesting. So I've had people from TikTok reach out to me because of everything I've written about it. The argument that I've used to TikTok is, I think, number one, TikTok needs to do something above and beyond than just opening up their own fulfillment centers. I think what TikTok needs to do is, again, change how commerce is done on the platform. So I think would be very interesting is if TikTok acquires Shopify. So where now I have Shopify, I have the Shopify storefront on TikTok. And so then what happens is I immediately see a video come across, but it's a video from a storefront. And without having to go to a website, I see it, I buy it. And that's how I refer to what I think is the next big thing in commerce. I say, see, buy. I see it, I buy it. I'm not going to websites as far as I'm concerned. Going to a website anymore feels like I'm back in the Stone Age. Now, I didn't live during the Stone Age, so I'm not really meaning it that way. But I'm saying here we are in 2022, and how do we shop? We go to websites and we shop. I don't understand that. I don't understand why I don't have the ability to see something on a video, and I simply stop that video, and from that same screen, I either use my finger or I use something and I click on it. I'll pop something. What color do you want? What size do you want? I'm extra large. I work out all the time and I can't wear anything that fits. So I'm extra large and I like black color. And then I order it and I'm done. And then I start my video back up. I think TikTok should be reaching out, just as I said to Walt Disney and other companies. I think the next big thing also is being able to make video based on the products that are going to appear in the video. Don't just advertise on Twitter. Work with Twitter and say Twitter and FX. So I think FX is a really great studio. I think brands should say to Twitter and FX, I sell a car, I'm Ford Motor Company, or I sell detergent, or whatever it is. Let's work together, and let's not just do a product placement. Let's really find a way to put my product in a scene that people remember it because of the scene. And, oh, by the way, there happened to be a protein drink in there or something else. And then when the video comes out, you give people the ability to shop. So those are a few things I think that certainly TikTok needs to do. But the big thing TikTok needs to do, and I'm not a big fan, frankly, of what they're trying to do here. TikTok can invest billions of dollars, and they're going to still be light years behind Amazon and other companies in terms of their logistics network. So I've had really pretty, I wouldn't say brutally honest. No, actually, I would say brutally honest. That's pretty much the way I do things. I've had very brutally honest conversations with executives from TikTok where I've made the argument to them, number one, you're getting ready to be kicked out of the United States. You have more and more senators coming out saying you're a danger to Americans. And here you are talking about opening up warehouses. So I think your priorities are completely screwed up. I think you need to do something different. But I said, I believe what you should be doing is changing the way you're going to go after fulfillment and instead look for partnerships. And I said, one of the more interesting ones is partner with Amazon. People might say, well, they would never do that. But Amazon is a third-party logistics company now. They have a division that sells their logistics services the same way they sell AWS. So there'd be an interesting discussion, just as when I wrote about Walt Disney and Bob Iger returning. I think Disney has a great way to enter into commerce, but they have no fulfillment capability. So what if Amazon and Disney merge? Now what does that do? So I think we're reading an awful lot of stuff about TikTok and how they're going to build, but most people don't understand the amount of billions of dollars of investment and the hundreds of facilities that TikTok would need to come anywhere near what Amazon has done. Now, another option, if TikTok says, well, I don't want to get too close to Amazon, great. So partner with Walmart. Leverage the Walmart facilities. Partner with Home Depot and Walmart. Rethink the strategy, because investing billions of opening up or trying to open up a lot of fulfillment centers and still not even being close to having the ability of someone like an Amazon, I don't think that's a wise strategy. And frankly, I think it's a disaster for TikTok if they do that.
I couldn't agree more on that front, Brittain, because, I've seen this story get repeated. Fortunately, in my past life, I was at the table where Google was trying to build their, shop network, right? I have seen Shopify try and build Shopify fulfillment, and they have done acquisition. We'll see what ends up happening on that front. I've seen eBay try and bring eBay Promise from their perspective on creating a logistics network. And I worked with them in trying to attempt doing some of these things, right? Like as my past life is concerned. And I have to say, you are completely correct, right? Like if, most of these attempts were at least trying to leverage a partner to do it, and it wasn't billions of dollars, it was probably tens of millions of dollars to try and build a logistics network versus you building your own infrastructure and going in head first. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be, or we could be wrong, but I don't think we are going to be. Building that type of infrastructure is just going to end up hurting you, because so many things that play into the dynamics, you are better off partnering with a powerful player. And to the point that you just made about would they work with Amazon? Of course, right? Look at Amazon. Buy with Prime is now an option on Shopify's platform, right? That's perfect example right there. Of course, they would work together. Why wouldn't Walmart want to work with them if it drives additional volume through their network? As an example, items that are listed on TikTok are also listed on Walmart.com. Why not? Right? Some sort of rev share agreement, or so leverage an existing network to be able to do it, prove it out, and then 5 years down the road, maybe the strategy pivots to be able to do it yourself. Building your infrastructure yourself, I think that's a little painful to go down that path as head first, but we'll see what ends up happening.
Correct. Again, you have to look at who's the leader in this. I think everyone points to Amazon. So why not leverage Amazon? Or Walmart? Why not leverage Walmart? Or a very interesting one. And from a strategy point of view, if I'm Brian Cornell and I'm in charge of Target, I'm already at ByteDance. I'm already talking to the CEO of TikTok, and I'm saying, by the way, we have these mixing centers. And we have this company called Shipped. And what if we start working together on something to where you leverage my facilities, my mixing centers, and from a strategy point of view, you put distance between you and Walmart, you put distance between you and Amazon, and I'm now your best friend because I'll invest in opening up more mixing centers and leveraging my ground transportation through Shipped to actually create something that doesn't exist. It's a whole new way for TikTok to be able to fulfill to the customer. We do it as a partnership, but we strengthen each other. And oh, by the way, maybe putting TikTok branded sections in my Target stores makes an awful lot of sense. And maybe as I have those branded TikTok sections in my stores, I'm inviting my customers to come in and make TikTok videos, and I play them all throughout my store, and then I sell the products in those TikTok videos. I advertise and I generate more revenue. See, this is the way I think, and this is the way I think probably both of you think. I don't want to go head to head. When I boxed, the worst thing I ever did is that I always thought, well, I can take a punch. And when you think you can take a punch, you stand there and you let people punch you, and then you find out, well, that hurts. So I got smart, and I started to learn from my trainers, and I'm like, you hit without getting hit. And so I think TikTok really needs to treat this as if they're going in the ring against a much bigger, stronger opponent. Avoid being hit. Don't go head to head with them and outsmart them. And that's why I think going and doing something with someone like a Target makes perfect sense. Or sure, they could use an Amazon, or they could partner with Walmart, but strategy. Who absolutely do I think from a strategy perspective should a TikTok go after? To me, it's Target. I think it's a perfect move for them. Or something interesting, a Shopify, or someone like a Facebook Meta. That's also something. The problem is Facebook Meta doesn't have any fulfillment. So see, now you're increasing the complexity through that partnership. Target has what TikTok doesn't, the fulfillment, but Target also has what TikTok doesn't. Target has about 2,000 stores.
Yeah, and I also don't see Facebook Meta playing there because, again, Instagram trying to become TikTok, right? So that would be a challenge. But Target is a really good option. And I was imagining that scenario that you were explaining inside the store, there is a TikTok branded booth in a corner and people are recording videos and they are playing up there, right? Like, so as cool as that sounds extremely dystopian. I don't know. That just sounds like something from like Judge Dredd or something, right? Like
it's coming.
It's coming.
I'd love to, Brittain, take what we just talked about, right? We talked about infrastructure and fulfillment and social commerce. I'd love your perspective on us as consumers. How are our expectations changing? And leading with the fact that what's surfaced in the last few years is Q-commerce or quick commerce, meaning I want to place something on an app, and there's a couple different segments. Maybe we'll save the grocery or the pure grocery segment for a second, but I want to place an order on an app, and I want to get a bag of Doritos and a Diet Coke delivered to my house in 15 minutes, right? The Gorilla GoPuff model. Again, I think there was more adoption of that during the pandemic, but now that we're on the other side, what are you seeing from what customers are demanding from an experience standpoint? Like, is there a there where I do want my Doritos and Diet Coke in 10 minutes because I don't want to leave the house? Or are customer expectations evolving a little bit where we're allowing for more time, where we could hop in our car and go down to 7-Eleven, right? So we could do more of that, which we couldn't do a couple years ago. So I would just love your perspective on quick commerce. I think we could sit here and talk for an hour about the unit of economics, right? And how it just doesn't add up. And as those models were coming out, we're thinking to ourselves, how in the world can that delivery happen for free or for such a nominal cost? Like, someone's losing a boatload of money here. But the perception was customers are going to demand it, and that demand is not going to change. So I will just stop there and would love your view on that world.
So it's interesting. So a little over 2 years ago, I was one of the first people to actually start writing about quick commerce or rapid grocery delivery. And the reason for that is I got contacted by several companies in Europe who said, look, we keep reading everything you write. And the thing you keep saying is companies can compete 3 different ways: on assortment, on price, or speed. And so we think we've come up with a way to compete on speed that no one can touch. And I said, well, walk me through it. And they were talking about 10-minute grocery delivery. And I'm like, well, if you're going to do something like that, you have to significantly reduce the number of SKUs that you offer because you have so little time for picking. And if you do something like that, you certainly can't automate the process because, again, there's nothing out there automation-wise that could pick that fast and then be able to put it in some type of a bag and then get it out the door. And so I said, really what you guys are doing is you've come up with a gimmick. So I immediately started referring to Gorillas and Getter and Flink and all these, Bike and fridge no more. All these companies, I said, look, you're nothing more than a gimmick. There is no there. Brittain Ladd was never sitting back saying, if only I could get a smoothie and a chicken breast sandwich and have it delivered to me in 15 minutes, my life would be much better. Never did I think that way, because there was no need for that. I have grocery stores all around. I can drive to a place. And I know that because these places are around me, I'm only driving 10 or 15 minutes anyway. And then while I'm there, I can get stuff. And with a little planning, I have this stuff in my refrigerator. I have my protein shakes, my protein powders already there. So I never thought that there was ever a need for something like this. And so the way I explained to all these companies that had reached out to me, I said, look, you have a very short shelf life. You're gimmicks. And I said, we're in a period where you can raise capital very easily. So I said, I have no doubt you're going to raise billions of dollars to be able to fund you. But I said, what happens is that at some point, you have to be able to fund yourself. And the way you would fund yourself, of course, is through the revenue and the profits you generate. And I said, that will never happen if all you can do is deliver groceries. So I said, here's the only way you succeed. If at some point, a year or 2 years down the road, enough consumers across the United States and Europe say, why is it I can get my groceries in 15 minutes, but I can't get apparel and shoes and electronics and cosmetics and so forth? I said, if you can achieve by influencing, what I meant to say is if you can influence consumers to think that way, I said, now what happens is those consumers are going to go to Target and Amazon and Walmart and all these other companies and say, why is it I can get my groceries in 15 minutes, but it takes days to get stuff from you? Even one day is too long. I want it now. And I said, if that happens, then you as Gorillas or Getter or some other of these other companies, you go to Walmart, you go to Amazon and say, we want to be your rapid delivery partner. I said, now you change the game because you're not delivering low margin groceries. You're delivering high margin, high value product. And I said, you're being paid by a company to actually make that a reality. I said, the odds of that happening, though, are very low to almost zero. And sure enough, what has happened in the industry is what I predicted. I don't like to say I predicted. Let's just say I anticipated. I anticipated it was simply going to falter because there wasn't a need for it. What they were offering wasn't that great. There wasn't that many products. And here's the worst part. Even if I leverage someone like a Gorillas to bring me groceries, I still have to go to a grocery store, or I still have to use somebody else to send me groceries. So why is it I need to be dealing with multiple companies? And so the other thing I said to these companies, the rapid delivery companies, the eCommerce companies, is that you need to partner with a grocery retailer, or you need to be acquired by a grocery retailer so that the grocery retailer says, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, I can get it there in 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I can get it there in an hour. I'm here for you. And I said, then what you're doing is you're simply leveraging their inventory. You're fulfilling product for them as a store. And I said, now you've changed the relationship. You can deliver all kinds of food, all kinds of groceries to them. You're not limited. The challenge is the grocery retailers really didn't even want to go down that path because they're already dependent on someone like an Instacart or Ship, or they themselves are having to try and pick. And picking and trying to fulfill orders in just a few hours is very challenging for many of these companies. So I really don't see a future for quick commerce. I've written about this. I've really said to companies, I don't think you should offer this. And instead, what I believe they should do is say, how about we find an agreeable time period, maybe within 2 hours. Let's just say to that. Let's say that I'm going to offer you more a precision delivery than a fast delivery. And that's what I think we're about to see even more. I think companies are going to say, how about I be more precise in my delivery versus being quick? Because delivering something precisely in 2 hours is still much faster than delivering something second day. So that's what I believe is really going to happen.
And especially if the assortment's not big, right? Like it's a lot of that is impulsive buys, right? Like it's more about like, I need that bag of chips now, right? Like it's going to your corner grocery stores And I think, so first of all, I firmly believe that us as humans, we tend to perceive the pace of change to be much faster than it actually happens to be in reality, especially in technology, right? I like to bring this example up about, you remember the drones from Amazon doing deliveries? That was back in 2012. That's when they came out with that video. I don't see no drones dropping nothing in my backyard at this point, right? And I think it's the labor and the human factor in any delivery model combined with the density of orders that you create in a given specific region. Those are the two things that play into it. And I think the first one, it's taking that human labor out, is what's going to reduce the cost of delivery. The reason why during pandemic, I used to do a lot of Uber Eats, right, as an example, and I barely do any at this point. And the primary reason is when I see that delivery cost at the bottom of it, I go, nah, I'll just take my car and just drive up and get the same thing. And I know it's going to be even a 20% discount for going and picking it up. So I think it's going to play into that. So we need density and we need some progression in technology from a delivery standpoint. And yeah, at that point, it will all start making sense. Now, the regular rapid grocery delivery, the big footprint, like Walmart's doing the delivery or Instacart or whatnot, that makes complete sense, right? Like, you have the 4-hour, 5-hour window, deliver it at 9 p.m. tonight. That completely makes sense. And I see that market continue to grow. But the quick commerce, the rapid grocery, low SKU count type of companies, yeah, to your point, I think it's at this point game over. I don't know how they get out of that one.
Correct. Yeah. And they will all disappear. I have no doubt about that. As far as the delivery itself, I work with different companies. There's a company that I'm a big supporter of called Clevon out of Estonia. I think they've done a great job. What I love about them is they don't push autonomous vehicles, and instead what they push are teleoperated vehicles, where they actually have people sitting in Estonia who can drive vehicles here in the United States, and they actually have faster reaction times. The other thing that I like is I've really encouraged a company called Agility Robotics that makes a robot called Digit. And I've said to Agility Robotics and Clevon, I said, you two companies should partner. And I said, you need to create something where an Agility robot sits on the back of a Clevon vehicle. And Clevon is teleoperated and driven through neighborhoods. And the Agility robot, Digit, simply gets out, grabs the groceries, grabs the package, and walks it to the porch. Now, here's where I changed everything. Lots of companies have wanted to do this, but they can't get the robot to work correctly because it's really complicated to try and to create the algorithms where a robot can stand up and, have vision and figure out what to do. So I said to Clevon and Agility Robot, why not just simply let the person who drives the vehicle teleoperate the robot? So now I've greatly simplified all of what it takes to get that robot to operate because it's actually being controlled by a human. They basically are simply using controls to control the robot. The robot reaches forward because the person who drove the vehicle now uses a joystick and they control the robot. The robot picks something up and they control the robot to walk to the steps. They walk it back. It gets in the vehicle. It's greatly simplified it. That's what I really am anticipating we're going to see next is instead of autonomous vehicles, teleoperated vehicles with a type of a robot that can actually now take packages or groceries from the cart and walk it to a porch, walk it up the steps. We're putting Digit's going to have actual hands on it soon to where it can actually open a door. So there's a lot of stuff we still have to see changed on Digit, but we're getting close. And when that happens, that's when ordering food and groceries becomes so much less expensive because you're now able to simply have a teleoperated vehicle that's designed for this. It's just a small, tiny vehicle with a little robot on the back who can take your package and take it inside. So we're getting there. We're probably a year or more away from this being a reality, I believe.
Wow. I just got to say, Brittain, have you thought about writing like sci-fi books or something? Because I got to say,
my head
man,
hurts right now.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds a little too dystopian because in the back of my mind, I'm now thinking like, like there is rooms and rooms full of people in developing nations. I don't like using the word third world, but like developing nations that are driving our cars, because I'm just extending. It's like this self-driving car reality. Before that happens, it's someone else actually driving my car while I'm sitting in my car. So, and I completely see that, because guess what? You just solved the labor problem. You literally solved that $22 per hour person doing my delivery to maybe $1.50 per hour doing my delivery, right?
Well, and you actually can. So the Philippines is a great location for something like this. There's a company I'm an advisor to called Tortoise. Their little carts are actually driven by people sitting in Mexico City. So this is not dystopian. This is real. This is happening. All I simply said is, well, wait a minute, Clevon, why not simply partner with a robotic company? Agility Robots has Digit. Anyone can go to Agility Robots and see little Digit moving around. But the way that Digit operates today is very complicated. So I simply said, let someone who is controlling the car control the robot. Now I've simplified it. But it gets even more interesting. Some of these people who can do this are now actually controlling forklifts in companies. They drive the forklifts and they're doing the work because the forklift can be driven remotely, teleoperated. So this is how we get around a lot of the labor shortages. But when I look at this, I say, well, what else can we do? So certainly, why can't I have a teleoperated vehicle come pick me up instead of having an Uber come pick me up with a person in it? And from a safety perspective, you know what? I think women would much rather prefer to have somebody drive a teleoperated vehicle and pick them up than versus having some of the people that are bad actors who are in a Lyft or in an Uber and have committed crimes against women. So that's another reason why I came up with this. I said, let's leverage this technology and do something different. So that's how I come up with a lot of these ideas.
Love it, Brittain. I get to learn so much. I just got to say on this particular episode, it's been amazing.
It has been amazing. Brittain, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Again, for all those who don't follow Brittain on LinkedIn, it's time to do that. His community, as I said before, is greater than 25,000 followers. But Brittain, love to give you an opportunity to just give your LinkedIn handle, let everyone know how they could follow you, and keep reading all the interesting information that you keep pumping out there for us.
Well, anyone can reach out to me via LinkedIn. Brittain Ladd is my name. My email address is bcladd48@gmail.com. You can reach out to me that way too. I always respond to everyone who reaches out to me via LinkedIn. You're more than welcome to place a comment on any of my LinkedIn posts. I also write articles for Forbes. I do that freelance. I have my own website, BrittainLadd.com. I write articles for my own website as well. And it's really one of the things where I dearly love engaging with people. I like it when people, reach out to me about their ideas, or they say, I read something, but maybe I don't agree with everything you said. I love that. You know what? I'm here to learn just as much as all of you. And you know what? I really enjoy what I do. And I greatly appreciate the fact that both of you invited me on this podcast. And anytime you want to have me back, I'm more than happy to, because I love what all of you do. And I think it's really one of the better podcasts out there.
Thank you, Brittain.
Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
We'll have you back.
By the way, we will need to have you back because I only covered 50% of what I needed to, right? So
yes, well, there were a lot of topics we didn't get to.
Exactly.
I can come back and we can cover anything else you'd like.
Absolutely.
Anything you want.
Thank you very much, Brittain.
Thank you both very much. Have a great day.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to maximize your supply chain. Available on all major podcasting channels. Thank you for listening and see you in the next episode.